Hello again, everyone. Well, this evening I am talking to Diana Reid, who is the author of Love and Virtue from Ultima Press. Now, before we launch in, you all know this is my book of the month, so get on it. Okay, I'm not going to chat to you too much. I'm going to go straight into Diana. So we'll have another word at the end. Hi, Diana. It is so wonderful to be talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, I just wanted to make you blush a little bit because I received an email not so long ago. Before I ask you a question, I'm going to tell you things from Ultima Press, telling me that you have had an absolute sort of suite of endorsements from Mia Friedman, Annabelle Crabb, who's the other, it's saying electrifying, it's amazing, and from Helen Garner, which that must make you feel something.
It makes me feel a lot. Helen Garner in particular, obviously I'm very grateful for all of the endorsements, but Helen Garner in particular was amazing because I suppose this is sort of going into what the book's about, but the book does deal with a residential college in Australia. Mine's fictional, but for research last year I read The First Stone, and then I wrote Helen Garner a very sycophantic letter once I found out that Love and Virtue was going to be published. And I actually had while I was writing Love and Virtue, I had this piece of paper above my desk which had quotes from authors that were sort of informing me, and Helen Garner was obviously one of them. And I sent her this sycophantic letter, and then I sort of said, in case you don't believe me, I've attached evidence, and I sent her that piece of paper from above my desk to sort of prove that she was very influential to me. So, and then she wrote me a letter back only a couple of weeks ago, and I cried and I was shaking when I opened it. So yeah, I haven't been very cool about the whole thing. It's been totally incredible to have someone you idolize engage with you as a real person.
Absolutely. And saying, if I'm just going to quote it, what she says about your book is, it's an absolute cracker. Love and Virtue lobs right into the current moment with a clarifying light. I hope everyone reads this book. I mean, you can't ask for more, can you?
No, you really can't. Yeah, you can't imagine more. I was stoked.
Yes, excellent. I mean, it's just such an excellent start, isn't it? Because this is a debut, all right? I mean, and it's already a hard enough, path for authors to be getting their first one out, they're getting seen at all. And this one is kind of shot right up through the ranks, which is it's not astonishing. It's a really great book. Tell me about how that whole, because we know I'm getting an idea of what it feels like to be published, but tell me about how this whole thing happened. Where did it come from? How did it all happen for you?
So it's sort of all, to be honest, it kind of came from COVID, which is, I sort of hesitate to say because it's been obviously such a horrible time globally. So yeah, I sort of don't want, I don't want to paint too positive a picture of it by any means, but I graduated uni at the end of 2019, and then I studied, I did, like the characters in the book, I studied philosophy, and then I also studied law. And in 2020, I sort of deferred my graduate job as a lawyer, and I was going to try and work in theatre. And I had a play on at the start of January, and I had plans to go to the Edinburgh Fringe, and then COVID obviously cancelled theatre globally. So then I found myself with nothing to do, and I'd sort of always thought that I might like to write a novel one day, before I died. And then I thought, well, if I can't write one now, when the state is enforcing that I do nothing, then I'm probably not capable of writing one. So that's how I came to write it. And then while I was writing it, I sort of didn't think it was publishable. I was kind of just writing it as sort of an exercise for myself to see if I could do it. And then I ended up with Ultima Press, and it's just beyond my wildest dreams. Yeah.
So that was quite a quick process, really, for you. I mean, you. So tell me where, what made you write these girls, this story? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so so as I said, I just finished uni myself, and the book's not autobiographical in that all the people in it and all the events are fictional, but it certainly deals with an environment that was very fresh for me, and it deals with, I guess, people my age and like campus culture in the way that I experienced it. So that was one reason. I guess it was just personal and it felt fresh. And then the other reason was that I just like campus novels as a reader. And some of my favourite books include like The Secret History and Brideshead Revisited, and the Sally Rooney books were doing so well at the time. They're obviously still doing super well, but I think Normal People was just sort of making a huge splash. And it kind of just struck me as odd that Australia didn't have a campus novel, especially as someone who just spent so much time on a campus. I thought this is an experience Australians have, and I'm not aware of an Australian contribution to this genre. So I guess I sort of saw a gap.
Okay, so a lot of campus novels, deal with the relationships and quite often friendship, the way the friendships evolve, whether or not they go into the sort of romantic or sexual domain is varies from book to book. You wouldn't call yours a friendship novel, really, or would you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's sort of a tricky question because the main relationship at the centre of the novel is probably best characterised, to use a sort of reductive term, as frenemies. It's about two women who have a very competitive and toxic friendship, and I guess it's flattering in the sense that they're both inspired by each other and they want to be like each other, but then the competitiveness of it means that they ultimately are trying to tear each other down. So yeah, I don't think I would call it a friendship novel, although maybe you would, because it deals with, I guess, an underbelly that people don't always see in female friendships.
And these two characters we have in there, we have Eve and we have Michaela. Are they characters that you have in sort of composite form or ever met or would like to meet?
I think that I think all my characters, it's fair to say, are composites of sort of types of people that I've encountered. And in terms of who you would like to meet, I think Eve is the kind of character who is perfect to meet in a book because she's very charismatic and she's got interesting things to say and she's sort of superficially engaging, but you can't trust her as far as you could throw her. So I think she's good to meet in fiction, but in real life, I'd probably want to steer clear.
Yes, she's an interesting character. Tell me about, your novel does a lot more than talk about this toxic friendship. It actually has this whole other layer of, I suppose, philosophical exploration. Now, this obviously harks immediately back to what you have studied. I suppose I really want to know, was that really what you wanted to be exploring, and was the novel the form that you felt allowed you to sort of talk to us about what is absolutely central about love and virtue? Well, about
yes,
being good.
For sure. I know, it's so funny. I always start these kind of interviews saying, oh, the book's fictional, and then you scratch the surface and it's like, I studied philosophy, my character studied philosophy, but yeah, it is fictional.
Well, you could obviously have chosen to write, essays on, and you probably have written a lot of essays on this, but
yes, absolutely. I think that, I do think that the novel is a great form to explore sort of deep philosophical questions. And that's certainly not an idea that's original to me. When I was at uni, I did honours in philosophy, and my thesis was on Iris Murdoch, who's probably like the only person in the world who's equally famous as a novelist and a philosopher. So I guess it was a kind of intersection that I was very aware of, and it sort of reflects what I like about both philosophy and reading, is that it confronts you with questions that I don't think are necessarily answerable. And those kind of questions are about morality and what does it mean to be a good person, and if you're only good because you want people to think you're good, does that mean that you're actually selfish, or does it mean that you're good in the end, and all of those kinds of questions that I think books have been asking forever and will continue to ask forever, don't have answers. And I think that in sort of contemporary culture, a lot of moral discourse happens online, and things are presented to us as being very black and white, and that's fine, and indeed that's probably socially necessary. But I do think that literature is perhaps uniquely a good space to have these discussions where things don't have clear answers and people can be presented to you in a longer form as being like very complicated and their situations as being multifaceted. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes. No, it does. It does. I mean, it's fascinating because you do open your novel with an event, which, and I don't want to give too much away, but I think because it is central, but it is dealing with a sexual encounter, which may or may not be just bad sex or an assault, or what are we calling it? And I felt that this was an astonishing question to be asking, is how we look at those events and how we name them and how society talks about that.
Thank you. I'm glad that you I'm so glad to hear that you sort of got that out of it, because that is what I was trying to do. And I think that, I mean, I think I just personally don't like books that tell me what to think. I like reading books that kind of present the world to me as more complicated than I previously thought. And I appreciate that that's just sort of an aesthetic question that goes to taste. Some people might like to read something that really clarifies their thoughts and enables them to say that they know clearly what's assault and what's not. Whereas I think I wanted to write a book for people who sometimes just don't know. And I wanted to sort of say that things are grey. And for anyone who's ever like scrolled on Twitter and thought, oh gosh, I'm actually a bit confused and I feel pressured to have an opinion where I don't really have one yet, hopefully they can identify with some of the ambivalence in this book.
Yes, it's interesting because the other questions that you tackle, which are very strong sort of themes that one finds on let's say social media, are things like, whose story is it? Can I tell this story? Is it a kind of an appropriation? And maybe by dealing with it novelistically, you're sort of avoiding this. I mean, it's the heart of your story as well, isn't it? Who is telling this story and who does the story belong to? Do you get much commentary on that? I mean, I found that a very fascinating and brave thing to go into.
Oh, thank you. There has been a bit of commentary. I think that what I was trying to do with that is to sort of demonstrate a kind of classic like moral problem, which is if you benefit a lot of people, but you go about it the wrong way, does that mean that what you've done is right or wrong? And I think that's what the sort of stealing the story is doing in the book, because it's the story. Without giving too much away, someone's story is stolen and it is arguably put to a very good use. And so, I guess I was just trying to raise a question about how much intentions matter and how much and whether, we judge people by the consequences of their actions or the way they go about them, if that makes sense.
It does. It's the intention is probably essential, core to your exploration there. Let's go back to your characters. So you have basically two main characters, two girls who are these frenemies. Were they, as a writer, did you find them biddable? Did they do what you wanted? Or did you find you were being led on funny journeys or were you sort of like, in command of your horse, if you like, in terms of writing a novel?
That's interesting. I think that the narrator, who is Michaela, is a bit she was more biddable because she's the eyes through which the reader sees this world, and she is someone who, despite being superficially confident, is actually kind of passive, like things sort of happen to her, and she's very young, and she's younger than she thinks she is really, and so she allows the people around her to dictate what she thinks about things and how she responds to them. So she was kind of easy to write in the sense that, or she was biddable in the sense that once you've got the other characters in place, she kind of like falls in with them. And then Eve, who is the so Eve's the one who I was saying before is quite charismatic, but she's like a bit of a piece of work. She appropriately was less biddable. And sometimes I think when I was writing Eve, I was always kind of walking that knife edge of wanting her to do things that are outrageous and bolshy and brash, but never tipping too far into it just being unrealistic.
Sure, and you want to keep your reader engaged with her, and not say, oh, well, the moral dilemma is solved for me because I don't like what she does, or,
yes,
she was a
exactly.
complex character.
Yes.
You are writing straight into this Me Too kind of movement, and the stories of, which are all over the place, of privilege, of male privilege, and of privilege of wealth. Was this, this is yet another layer. Looking at your novel, there's just so many layers to, like, it's an onion. You're sort of getting more and more narratives. Was that, did you know that you were observing this kind of behavior while you were in university, or was it just, tropish in the sense that it is a trope, isn't it, really? Were you sort of aware of that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think that one thing that I was very aware of, which they deal with in the book in terms of, I guess it sort of poses ethical questions about what it means to be a good person. One thing that I was very conscious of is this idea that for a lot of people who come from that particularly privileged background, they're protected from consequences often for their actions, especially when they're younger and they're in these institutions. There's sort of a sense that normal social rules don't apply and that they can behave in a particular way within these closed societies, and that it won't ever kind of come out in the wider world. And so I think that poses, I guess, from a novelistic perspective, that poses an interesting question about, well, what is morality, and do you derive it from the people around you? And if the people around you don't seem to ever be punished for any of their actions, then in what sense can you say that you have a moral bedrock? So yeah, I think that was kind of what I was trying to observe, or what I had observed.
Moral bedrock, that'll keep us all going. Tell me about, very quickly, and this is a kind of a quirky question. I love this cover. I'll show it to my customers again. You just take an eyeful of that. It's rather amusing, isn't it, that you've got love and virtue and you have this rather classic feel to it. And I was sort of thinking, what do you think about that as a sort of, because it does give you the feel that you might be going to open up a sort of a historical romance, or a... Yeah. Did you get that feel from it? This cover is absolutely sublime.
I do. I've got it here too. I love, it's blurry. There you go. I love the cover, personally, and I agree. I think they were going for that classic feel, and it sort of goes to what you were saying before about it. One of the big themes being sort of wealth and privilege. I think they were, the cover is meant to look like a crest.
Oh, yes.
And so I think they were trying to convey a sort of prestige, institutional vibe, but with fun colours.
Yes, and with, of course, that two-headed, you've sort of got your sort of diversion, or your separation of your two ways of thinking, or your two explorations of which of them is gooder in a sense.
Exactly, but two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, that's very, very lovely. Now, just to move just a tiny bit away from this, I'm interested in... basically, because we're going to run out of time quite soon, and I do want to ask you a lot of things, and we probably won't have time for all my questions, but...
I'll keep my answers brief.
Now, you can wax lyrical if you want to, but talk to me about who, like the campus novel is something that's quite specific in a way, and as a reader or as a bookseller, I might think that that's sort of very much targeted to an age group. My mind has changed, but were you writing to a particular target audience or not necessarily?
No, I genuinely wasn't. And I think that was just because I honestly, it's very easy to say after the fact, and people would sort of say, well, why did you sit down and write a whole novel? But I genuinely didn't think it would be published. So the idea that like anyone other than my closest friends would read it sort of as a favour to me didn't really occur to me. So I definitely wasn't writing with masses of readers in mind. I think I just drew a lot of inspiration from books like The Secret History and Brideshead Revisited and Conversations with Friends, which are all set on university campuses and deal with, I guess, all of the complexities of that time in people's lives where they're not quite adults.
Yes, astonishing, really. I mean, and it is definitely, as Helen Garner says herself, it is a book for everyone. She wants everybody to read it, and they really should. You've been warned. Just before we probably have to say wind up in a couple of minutes, but is there anything that you've been, I mean, your book is out there and it is taking in our shop, it's one of the books that we've promoted as Book of the Month. There are a lot of fantastic books out there. Is there anything on your radar that you are reading at the moment that's on your to-be-read pile, or that you think a lot of?
Yes, I read in lockdown, it's either Nobody or No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And I loved it. It's not a very hot take. I think she's been nominated for a Booker, so lots of people also love it. I just thought it was it was a totally original way to kind of articulate the experience of living online. And I think given, especially in lockdowns, we've all spent a lot of time online, it was a very cool thing to see sort of portrayed in literature, I thought.
Yes, it's an astonishing piece of writing with two very definite. I think I haven't presented. Oh, I have. I did review that one. Yes, very definite halves to it in a way. But yes, I think that is definitely a Booker. And to finish up, so you've got one book that's sort of taken off. Is this spurring you to think a little bit about you might have more novels in you?
Yes, so I was very fortunate. My publisher bought Love and Virtue, and then I'm also writing a second book for them, which is due quite soon. It's due at the end of the year. The end of 2020. Yeah, like in 2 months.
You're insane. Sorry, you're not. You're very, very sane, obviously, but that is an amazing output. Astonishing.
Oh well, I mean, it's due, but. It might be a very long time before you see it in a finished state. So,
and do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy the experience of being edited and having your work sort of, taken apart a little bit? And I mean, I think you have a wonderful editor, haven't you?
I have a wonderful editor, and I just completely love it. It's just such an honour to go from writing something on a Word document on your laptop that you don't think anyone would read, let alone care about, and then to have professionals invest so much time in telling this story the best way. I cannot think of a greater privilege as a writer. I just love it.
I'm glad you do, because we look forward to you being allowed to go through that experience again, and we'll be hanging out for the next one.
Thank you so much,
Diana. We don't have an awful lot of time. I'm going to turn this off before it all goes beep 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 beep. It's such an amazing book, and we are, as I've said several times, we're very, very happy to be getting behind this one and putting it into the hands of all our customers. Thank you so much for giving me time for this chat, because I've enjoyed every single moment of it, and we probably could go on for a long time, but we both have other things to get on with. So thank you so much, and whenever you're passing the Leaf Bookshop, do come in and say hello, but goodness knows when that will happen.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you for reading the book and for making it Book of the Month. I'm very, very, very grateful.
It's an absolute pleasure, Diana. All right, everyone, that's it from us. I hope you've enjoyed our little chat, and again, there's Love and Virtue. Do come in for that one. Thank you to Ultima Press for this little find, an absolute gem, and I will see you next time.